Welcome to Sacred Spaces, the other side of the story. This is Queen Carlenia, and I am so honored to have as my guest Queen Tisha Winkler. She is Newsome World Awards most beautiful woman, but she is also co-host of this very popular podcast called the Bookbreakers podcast. She's an author. How many books have you authored?
Actually, I have three books that I self-published, and I have one anthology book.
Wow. One, say that again. One, what kind of book?
Anthology with Melanie Bonita. She has a best-selling book called Daily Dose of Prayer.
Yes. Okay. So that's a co-authored book. Okay. All
Yes.
right. So she's an author four times, four times over. And she's also been a preschool teacher for over 16 years. And so I am so excited to have her. Listen,
Good
she
morning.
she and Queen Barbie Johnson with the Book Breakers, they have over, well, this young lady right here has over 16,000 followers. Okay. So if you want anything promoted, you definitely want to connect with Queen Tisha. She's on Facebook, very easy to find. Through the Book
Yeah.
Breakers or just through your name? How can they find you?
Actually on Facebook, through my name.
Through her name, Queen Tisha, Tisha Winkler, Winkler. She's also a prophetess. I said that right, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so with say, we were talking a little bit before we started to record, and I was just sharing when I talk about sacred spaces, the other side of the story, I'm talking about um a lot of times the things that people don't see. When we live in a world where people don't know what is right and what is wrong anymore, because it's like everything goes, there's no standards. And a lot of people who are able to see into the spirit realm, who are able to hear from God, who are able to bring messages to people, whether they call themselves prophet or prophetess. They may not even give themselves that title. You might not give yourself that title, but you have gotten a certain feeling, or you get something, flash of insight in some type of way, and that leads you to or prompts you to say something to someone. And because you follow that guidance, now some may say, God told me, and others may just share the information. But however you do it, you know that when you've done it, it has helped somebody in some way. It's prevented something. It's helped them to make a corrective decision. And so this is really the other side of the story. And I want you all to, I want you all to be able to see yourselves, see your experiences through our guest eyes. Because when I was telling her, I said, when people say God told me something, that's what we hear on the outside. But how you heard may be different. Maybe you didn't hear it in words. And so I just want to start like right there. And I know a lot of us, I was telling her when I was young, I had no idea that I knew anything about anything because I had no frame of reference for it. And I would oftentimes walk into people, have a conversation, and they would say, "How did you know that?" And I'm like, "I didn't know that. I'm just talking to you." And I literally, not even people repeatedly saying that to me, because I had no frame of reference um, for what I was saying, where it was coming from, and that it was something other than my own thinking. And so, Queen, I'm just going to turn it over to you, but I want to just ask you, you know, when did you start to know that you were hearing God? And it may not have come to you that way. And if it did, that's fine. But I just want you to just talk to us about that. Give me one
Yeah,
second because I hear a phone ringing. I apologize. One
that's
second,
okay.
please. 1 second.
Answer that call.
Oh my goodness. And that is not even for me. Give me 1 second. I will be right back.
That's fine.
Go ahead. real time challenges.
Yes, okay. Used to
Thank
it.
you. Yes.
Yes, growing up as a child, even when I was like about 4 or 5 years old, my family, they used to laugh at me because they said I used to stare at people a lot. But even during that time, I felt some kind of strange feelings with like different people. Like, especially if they hugged me, I just knew that something wasn't right. I would just pick people's spirits up. My mother always said I was a little curious about people. But not until like when I was like at age 9 years old, I would hear God's voice, and it kind of scared me at times because I was afraid to really tell my mother. But I know during that time we were going to a Presbyterian church, and during that time I kept telling my mother because she had to go to church at night, and it was a night service, and my cousin wasn't able to go, so I kept telling my mother. I said, I don't think we should go. I said something bad's going to happen. She was like, "Girl, shut up and put your clothes on. We're getting out of here tonight." I said, "Mom, please don't go." I said, "Something bad is going to happen." And my mother, and I'm 9 years old, she's not really going to listen to me. I'm just a child. But we got in the car, so we went to the church, and it was no parking spaces there. So we had to park around the corner from the church. So my mother parked the car. When she got out, a man put a gun to her head. So now at the time she looking at me because I've been telling her all night something bad was going to happen, something bad is going to happen. And I was afraid as a child, like he's going to pull this trigger and kill my mother. So during that time, he grabbed her pocketbook and he ran down the street. And my mother was standing there just looking at me. She had to call the police. We never did make it to the church. But that was the first episode and the first time I heard God speak.
Oh, my goodness. So you heard it, you heard this the night before or the day of?
It was the day of.
The day of.
The day
Wow.
of.
And do you remember what you specifically heard? Or was it a
I just
feeling?
I just kept hearing. I heard danger,
Danger. Okay. Okay.
danger. Yes, and I
Yes.
just felt this like eerie feeling, like some. Oh, it was just like yes, it was like a bad feeling.
Yes. So after that, did, when you said things, did your mom actually pay attention to the things you were saying as opposed to just being like, oh,
No, she just thought it was a coincidence at the time for years.
wow,
Yes.
wow. That's interesting because I remember a long time ago there was a store called Borders bookstore, and I was
Yeah.
there and I met these young kids. They were maybe about 13 or 14. And it was I think it was two girls and a young boy. And they were in the metaphysical section of the bookstore. And I noticed they were looking at books that had to do with witches. And so I'm like, what are these children doing? When I got out the store, somehow I struck up a conversation with them. And they were telling me about their ability to see things, right? So they were just curious, trying to find out what was this, what what was what were they seeing and hearing, these types of things they were experiencing. One of the young ladies, she told me her little sister, I think her little sister was 5 or 6. She said, my sister has an imaginary friend. That's how she called her. She said it's an
Yeah.
imaginary friend. And, my mom always, when she puts a seatbelt on her, anytime we're going in the car, we're going somewhere, she'll say, Mommy, you have to put the seatbelt on, whatever the imaginary friend was. So this day they were going to a little kid's birthday party, and they had almost arrived to the place when the baby sister started to cry and say, Mommy, I forgot my friend at home. And the mom was like, no, it's okay. We're almost there. We're just like a couple blocks away or something. And she was acting up so much that the mom decided to, let me just turn around, go home, and, go through this. Nobody saw her imaginary friend but her. They got the little friend, the little imaginary friend, and drove back. When they got to the front of the house, there was police tape. There was things were scattered all over the place. And apparently, some guy walking up on the sidewalk was trying to come in. It was a little kid's birthday party. And of course, they wouldn't let him in. He got angry and he pulled out a gun and he started to shoot. And about three or four
Wow.
people got shot. But the thing is that the girl, the big sister told me, she said, if my mom hadn't listened and gone back to get my sister's little imaginary friend, we would have been there at the same time that man came there and started shooting.
Mm.
Right.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
a lot of times, children say things, um, and children don't come with an agenda. They don't even have a belief system. They just
Yes.
know, they just, like you said, I just knew when people hugged me, I could feel,
Yes.
I could feel something about them that didn't feel right. And we know that looking at kids, when a little baby doesn't want to go to someone, usually
Yes.
something is off with that person, because people are drawn to kids. Kids are drawn to people. Wow. So for you, what did did it what did it do for you when you realized that, how did you even identify that as God's voice?
Actually, during that time, I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was going a little crazy. Not until like, because after during that time, my mother, we actually started going to another church. It was a Methodist church. We started going to years later. I was around about might have been like 12 years old. So during that time, we had a new pastor, and during that time, she kept telling me that I had a prophetic anointing. I didn't know what a prophetic anointing was. That's when my pastor had told me that's what kind of gifting I had, that I saw things and I heard things from God. So during that time, I was just hearing things from God, and that wasn't the first time that had happened. When I was like age 14, my mother, I told her I wanted a brand new leather coat, and my mother was like, "Girl, you're not getting a leather coat because somebody's gonna steal it." So my best friend and one of her girlfriends, they wanted me to go to the movies that night. And it happened again. I kept hearing danger. You can't go. You can't go. And my friends there on this time, they think I'm a little crazy now. I said, I can't go. I said, God said I can't go. I said, it's gonna be something that's gonna happen. I can't go. They're like, well, go ahead, girl, because we're gonna have some fun tonight. So they had their leather coats. My mother never did get me the leather coat. They went to the movies, and two guys robbed them at gunpoint.
The same
It happened
thing.
the same
The
thing. Yes.
same thing.
Mhm.
Wow. So now this happened twice.
This happened
So
twice. Yeah.
so so that means did that make you trusted that voice like after the first time, or was it even a thing of trust?
I think during that time it was just I just felt the that feeling of danger. It was I just can't explain it. It was just like, oh, it's something bad's gonna happen.
Mhm.
Yes. And I still have that now, and I'm like, I can't go. It's something, it's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you have people around you that, like if you say that to, they understand that that's real? That's not just.
Oh, oh yes, the people that I'm around mostly in my community and the people that I'm around, I have a lot of friends that they walk in the prophetic, or they even know about deliverance and about different things in the ministry. So I don't feel like, well, some things I can't tell everybody because they might look at me as kind of strange.
Mhm.
You just have to be aware of who you can talk to about it, because you don't want to be in a straitjacket going somewhere.
Right. And you know what? That's another reason that's another reason that I'm doing this, because the thing is that today there is
Yeah.
so much, what is it, demonic interference, or interference by wayward spirits, that people don't have any way of measuring what is actually going on. They have no way of measuring their thoughts or feelings, no way of discerning. Is this me? Is this someone, something else? Is this a spirit that's telling me this, that's leading me in a wrong way? Is this God? There's no level of discernment. So with regards to being able to see and sense things that is beyond physical. Um,
Yes.
this is something that is talked about in what you talked about, church, prophetic circles, right? It's
Yes.
excuse me, talked about in psychiatric, psychological, not psychological, excuse me, psychology, people who are doctors and counselors and things like that, they would have those conversations. So in these places where you have these conversations, or you can be in church, so it's okay in church for the pastor to say, I see, God told me whatever, but let him be in the safe way or something. And he's saying that and nobody knows he's a pastor, right?
Yes.
And he begins to talk that way. People may look as you're crazy, you losing your mind or whatever. But the reality is that we're having these experiences every day. So just because you
Yeah.
have experiences does not mean you're a prophet or prophetess. These are natural experiences that people
Yes.
have, and people have children that tell them things. I have a friend who, I have a couple of friends who their parents died before their child was even born. And one in particular, he would say, "Oh, Grandpa is saying hi," or something like that, or waving or whatever. And she's just thinking, "Oh, he's a child. He doesn't know what he's talking about." But one day
Yeah.
he took out a an album, and she was flipping through, and the little baby was there. He was about 2 or 3, and he said, "There's Grandpa. There's Grandpa. He's wearing that hat." He knew, he identified who he was
Yeah.
talking to. So when we're having, when our children have these experiences, right? A lot of times we just brush it off because there's no place to
Yeah.
put it. Your mom brushed it off because she had no frame of reference for that. And yet something as shocking as being held at gunpoint and something
Yes.
taken from you still didn't wake her up to the realization that what this child told me was not happenstance,
Yes.
wasn't happenstance. And when I think about our people, Black people, wherever we are in the world, but especially here, who were brought, not everybody, but many of us brought from Africa and stripped from our families, from our spiritual and cultural traditions, our languages taken away, our way of caring for each other taken away. These are things, these kind of experiences or things that would have been treated in a very normal and natural way. Because for us to be able to see, we're not supposed to walk in this world blind. Your mom
No.
didn't have to walk blindly. She's thinking she's going to church. What are you going to church to do? You're going to church to worship God. And your baby girl is telling you there's danger. God is telling me don't, or I just feel like we shouldn't go. She's going to worship God. She didn't even get to the church because
Nobody.
you who are right next to her operating in real time, trying to warn her because she can't hear. God is trying to speak to you to tell her something, and she still can't hear. Could have nearly lost her life right then.
Yeah.
The good thing is that you could hear because you said when you have friends that were going somewhere, that thing with the leather coat, you're like,
Mm.
I feel that same thing. I feel that same danger. And you heeded the warning. You heeded the warning. I think today when there's so much deception, it behooves us to pay attention to the things that we see and the things that we hear. And even if we don't understand, ask God to make it plain. Make
Yeah.
it plain because God knows how to speak to you in a way that you and I can understand, that you don't have to guess or be going back and forth and end up slipping into harm's way because you couldn't receive the message. Now,
And it was one time I didn't heed the warning.
so tell me about that.
Yeah, this is like this might have been like about 8 years ago, and I'm a little I like food, so I was going to work one day, and I wanted, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted an egg McMuffin so bad with some sausage. So God kept telling me don't go.